Greetings, guys, gals, and non-binary pals. There we go. Welcome to episode 2 of the Botany Book Club, in which we are analyzing chapter 2 of Thus Spoke the Plant, entitled Kernels of Truth. But, before that, there's a lot in there. As we saw, as we saw last week, there's a lot. Before we get into that, apologies for a bit of a late start. My back is having some issues, so I'm sitting here with a heating pad on there. Thank you for the bits, honeycomb. Appreciate it. Yes, all of the salt. I have brought the salt. I have not brought a salt GIF, however. Still have not quite gotten onto that as of yet, but the salt is present and alive. In other news, right? Okay. So, I have a whole list of books that I want to read, that I haven't read for the last decade or something, that I haven't read since high school, yada yada. And one of which, we've got The Secret History of the Pink Carnation, courtesy of the lovely Honeycomb. And this is the one that I'm gonna be reading first of, the novels. It's not going to be a Botany Book Club, read-along thing, as much as me reading it and then posting a video just dedicated to that, depending on what it ends up reading like. I don't know all that much about it, except that it's called The Honey Bus and it's about people working with bees. However, I do know that it's an autobiographical memoir, and the family discussed is rather dysfunctional, and there's a lot of that dysfunctional family energy in the dialogue. So, if you want to read it, alright, but just know that going in. So, presumably, from what I've heard at least, there's info in here about bees and beekeeping, because that's what they do, and that's why I'm reading it. I'm reading it first because it's my grandma's book and she wants it back, so there's that. But yeah, there's that. We'll see how it actually reads and how I approach the discussion about that. But, it's not going to be a thing here so much, but it's going to be on the YouTubes, so that's a thing that's coming up. Anyway. But yeah, when something that's got potentially triggering familial relationship content is presented to you by one of your family members. It's like, oh yeah, this reminds me of our family, right? Like, I don't think you see why that's kind of an issue, Grandma. But, you know, alright, we're going there. Okay. So, anyway, there's that. Yeah. So, how's everybody doing? The weather's been more or less pretty good around here. The last couple of days it was rainy for a bit. Yeah, exactly. Like, what exactly are you trying to say here? I don't know. Well, I'm glad to hear y'all are having a good day. I'm trying to not move my back right now because the heating pad is like right in a good spot, but like the water bottle is like 2 inches farther than my... Ow, okay, got it. Then my arm can reach sitting like that. Oh, and, if you've been on the Discord since last night, you might have seen it, but there's a kind of running list of Botany book club / just YouTube analysis books on the Botany book club channel. So, if you have something that would be good to add, pop it in there. Species in the same awesome. Sometimes on that, if I'm remembering right, it depends on the plant. It depends on the plant and what environmental pressures are. If I'm remembering correctly, let's see. Well, I didn't get what I was expecting to get, but... Come on. But there's a whole lot of things about companion planting in that link there. So, yeah. That that and just an aside, what app are you using? No. It depends, especially for fruit trees, it depends on, where that plant's genetics is from, too. Because there's certain varieties that bloom earlier or later than others. And then it depends on the soils and stuff too, because oh, nice, very cool, very cool. What kind of Franken tree? Because the one that we've got is a 2 peach, 1 plum situation that doesn't seem to like doing anything. The plums are like, they're sweet and they're very much plummy, but like they all end up being like that big. So there's a layer of plumness around the pit that's like half an inch thick, and the peaches are all kind of watery. So, they smell nice, but huh. Okay. Then, I don't know. I don't know. Yeah, because if it's the same soil and the same like environmental conditions and like presumably the same care essentially, like I don't know. Nice, very cool, very cool indeed. Don't know why the neighbors are honking, but you know, there we go. Someone seems very annoyed about something. I'll say that. But yeah, no, totally get the intimidation factor on that because plants and things and yeah. Yeah, no, I don't know about that one. Your plant ID friend might have some issues. I've been using PlantNet, and that one seems to be pretty good. Let me see. There's, let's see. Ow. Oh, jeez. Wait. Did not mean to move the mic. Sorry, guys. Alright, there we go. Nice. Like, that's why it's not working. For the last, like, day and a half, right? I've been trying to find apps on my phone, and it's not been working, and it's just been completely obnoxious and just giving me random titles for films and stuff. Only for me to realize that apparently there's now different sections on the bottom that you can tab between games, apps, movies, and books. Because, yeah, obviously. Okay, let's see. Let's see this again. Because there's... Leaf Snap is pretty good too. That's... I couldn't remember which one it was, but there was... Yeah. Okay, yeah. I don't think I've tried either of those, but I've heard good things about those two. But yeah. I think it's Plant Snap that was being advertised sometime, I don't know, a year and a half ago as a Kickstarter thing. But yeah. Okay. Wait. Botanical and elephant ears. I know the names. Okay, so, I looked up blue endicott and got these. Yeah, that's what I thought. And then elephant ears is a big tropical plant that has leaves like that. So, unless that was just a general plant name suggestion that you were given, I don't know about that one. Alright. So, Chapter 2 of this bunch of shenanigans. Now, I was realizing... blue elephant. Let's see. Wheel? I didn't think so. Oh, right. I got none. Unfortunately. But yeah, no, totally get the lack of preparedness for an onslaught of info. Ooh, okay. Cool. Very cool. Did not know that. So if endicott is a type of pear, then elephant is a type of pear? Interesting. Alright. Good to know. Good to know indeed. Come on. For some reason, it doesn't want to let me copy. Come. Historical landmark stands above the endicott pear tree, stating the tree was planted by John Endicott, first governor of the Massachusetts Bay Colony. Okay. The tree is a living link to the earliest European settlers of our nation. Endicott was granted 300 acres where he settled and farmed, calling the property Orchard Farm. Okay. Interesting. Very cool. Very cool indeed. Yes, that is quite nifty. Quite nifty. Okay. Oh man. Okay. There we go. All right. Seriously, we've only done 2 chapters and it's already like... Oy. Alright. Let's see. Okay, so we are chapter today, we are at 37 of 131. Yeah. If you... Ow. Oh, jeez. One sec. If you manage to acquire a pear from the fabulous tree of awesome, share with the class how it tastes and stuff, and the texture and whatnot. Because, some of the heirloom ones are, like, really sweet, and some of them are just really not. It all depends on the variety. Okay, so. Thus spoke the plant. Chapter 2. Okay, so, as with chapter 1, we've got the stack o' notes on post-its that don't really want to stick anywhere, which is fun, when you're working with post-it situations that don't want to be posted. So, this, there we go. That is the notes for this chapter. And I was reading through and kind of realized that part of why I was so annoyed and why I'm still so annoyed with how she's interacting with the source material and the people, the source material being the people that she's working with, essentially, is that I remember doing that sort of thing, like, not when interacting with other people, but, like, when looking at the material when I was first getting into ethnobotany, because there's this weird divide between anthropology and ethnobotany for some people, where there's people and there's plants and there's things that people do with plants, and it's somehow three separate things, versus people working with plants as an entirely encompassing thing, because you wouldn't have one without the other, and it's a community relationship situation. And by the end of, it's very weird. I don't get it. I really don't. But presumably she's been working with research and scientific info and whatever for decades, because most of this was from her being in the Amazon in, like, I don't know, 2010, 2011, if I remember right. And like, or 2007, 2008 was, 2007-ish, I want to say. Which, incidentally, was the same time period that was applying to me, so. But, like, I was 19 or 20 at the time. I don't know. But by the end of chapter 2, she seems to be a little bit more self-aware about that, a little bit, so I'm hoping that it'll get better in later chapters. We shall see. Just, that's a lot. But yeah, it's... As to the reasoning why it's separated, it's... All I can figure is that it's trying to compartmentalize everything so that there's the human element removed from the botanical element, but if you're studying something that's integrated, where there's humans and there's plants and there's the general ecosystem of interacting in concert, you kind of can't remove, like, you know, the violins from the concerto situation and have it still sound the same. So, like, I don't get what they're trying to do when people do that. I just don't. You know? There we go. Also, I'm just gonna say, right? I know it's a word, I know it's used in certain contexts, but every time she says vegetal instead of, like, botanical or something, there's always this, like, in the back of my head, and I'm not entirely sure why. I just know that it's there, and it's just like, it's like the nails on a chalkboard kind of feeling. I don't know. Which is weird, because vegetation is fine, but vegetal is just like, what? Yeah. Integrated instruction things. That's a better way to do it. Okay. Did I... Okay. Also, one thing that I've been noticing, right? Each chapter, just like as a thing, right? If you start a chapter, and I don't know if this is just a formatting thing or what, but if you start a chapter with italics and none of the rest of the chapter is in italics, at least in my experience, it means that that part is a quote. Which is fine. Like, I don't know, like for this one, it says, all knowledge is borrowed knowledge up at the top here. But then the entire first, the entire first paragraph is in italics, and the last sentence is kind of a retelling of what's up at the top. Now, that would be fine if there was any kind of, like, footnote or reference or anything, but is it a situation where you're quoting yourself, or is there an unattributed quote in there, and then you've just decided to use that formatting situation for the rest of the page? I don't know. It's weird, and it bugs me, because that's how it is for every chapter. And it's not even like the first page and then it cuts off to regular print. It's like the first section for every chapter. Like, what is this? On top of which, I realized that the illustrations are probably self-done, and that's fine, but, you know, it's generally a good thing to have it have something to do with the context of the chapter that you're working with here. So, you know, just a thing on that. I don't... It's like, what is happening? Don't scroll that much. Yeah, the vegetal thing is a bit weird on that one. Yeah, and that's not even, like, the content. That's just, it looks weird and it bugs me. And I couldn't quite figure out, like, what it was about the first round that was just, like, right off the bat kind of off-putting, and it was kind of that. That was at least part of it. So, yeah. So, there's that. I mean, at least if you're high while writing it, put it in that, like, this was written under the influence of something, you know? Just, that's all I want, alright? That's all I need for context. Just like, we talked to these people, they were pretty chill, and then we did some whatever, and wrote a thing. Even that would be more context and conceptual analysis than what is presented. Oh, yeah. Yeah, exactly. You could write whatever you want to write, well under the influence of what you're doing, but, like, at least make sure that it makes sense, and, yep. Also, right, just the first sentence in this chapter, right, is about, it's about the most not like other girls thing that I've ever seen in context of plants, right? Because we've got ridiculed, scorned, or deliberately ignored. The truth about anything is quirky and awkward when it first emerges. Like, I get what you're saying, but, it's not like other truths. Like, this one's different. Yeah, it's... And the frustrating thing is, I get what she's trying to do. Like, I get it. But... it... no. It's just, it goes on. And on. And on. I was happy to be able to finally use the freaking, like, yellow plant care something tabs, even though it didn't actually apply for most of it. You know, there's that. It was so annoying. Hey, come on. Where's the start of this thing? Exactly. Not like other plants. Like, I'm special. Alright, so now that that's out of the way. Okay, let's see. Alright. Okay. 8. And the first kind of element of, like, I don't know, self-awareness or whatever, is kind of in here where it says, in the end, all knowledge is borrowed, or all knowledge is only ever borrowed, which, valid point, yeah, but yeah, that's basically, like, that and the experiment are the main body of the thing, and that could have been a couple of paragraphs, or, like, 2 or 3 pages, instead of, like, 14 or whatever it was, right? Yet the first instance of actual, like, vaguely ethnographic info in here, yeah, if it's in context of someone, really? They just redid the Big Follows thing and cut out the link. Got it, thanks. Thank you, Honeycomb. Seriously? Like... Yeah, like, I get the reason for having the plants isolated as an experiment, but if you're trying to show that plants are intelligent beings deserving of respect and care and are teachers and things, trying to illustrate that by sticking them in isolation chambers to see how they react seems a bit counterproductive. I don't know, just the thing. I was reasoning. I I was wondering why it now has a reason on there. Yeah. Which, I don't know. But yeah, if it's in context where there's a person whose native language is whatever the general text is not, like if someone's native language is Spanish or Japanese or whatever, and the main text is in English or French or anything else, and the person who's a native speaker or the person who is speaking says something that is then translated, okay, fine. But yeah, they're just kind of sprinkling in just sprinkling in the non-English phrases does come across as kind of, patronizing. It does. Yeah. Yeah, and there's ways to do that in a text, but the way that it's approached in this particular text does not have that vibe, if you will. Okay. For some reason, my nose has just been running for the last couple days, so one sec. Gonna mute for a bit. BRB. Yeah. Yeah. That one was kind of weird. With the dieta. From what I understand, at least, and from what, because I'm pretty sure one of my friends has done the process, and if it's the same thing, you have to cut out pretty much all seasonings that, especially all seasonings that are kind of a powerful flavoring, except that plant material for X amount of time. So because you're restricting what you consume, technically it could be considered a diet, so therefore, yeah. But yeah, no, I totally see what you're saying with that. And my info is secondhand in, both situations. And the first-hand info is from people non-native to the region that it's being actively practiced in. So I don't know how accurate that is. But the friend, at least, is usually pretty on point when it comes to cultural things like that. So we shall see. But I don't know. That one was a bit odd, though, I will say. Okay. One of the things that's weird and constantly contradictory throughout the entire thing so far is the discussion of plant linguistics, because it's well established that plants don't communicate with words. Yeah. Really. Really. Plants don't communicate with words in the human linguistics set. And well, communication works as a phrase, just like humans communicate with non-human animals. And the environment and anything else. A lot of times people say something and there might be a response, but it's not the same language, shall we say, you know? Like, like, the human says something and then the cat's like, meow. It's a communication, but it's not the same language, but there's still an amount of understanding, right? And, like, there's a point in here where Don M., who is the author's contact, essentially, and one of the shamans, who appears at least to be the main plant communication person for the community, says that some plants sing in Shipibo, others sing in Quechua, like Mama Coca, the coca plant, and some sing in other ways, and that he was able to sing the songs during ceremonies even if the language was unknown to him or simply other than human, which makes sense, really. But just going on what we already know for stuff, and I don't, this is the iffy part, because I don't want to come across as a white person saying that what's related from an indigenous person is not their experience. That being said, in certain situations, there's, in lore and whatnot, there's stories of, like, an entire group of something, a people, what have you, and We're back. Okay. The only way that I'm seeing that working as, like, an identifiable human language is in the context of, if we're taking what is being said at face value, right, then there's a possibility that the language in the plant's native region, like the human spoken language in the plant's native region, impacts the plant's song. Being that humans and their botanical counterparts have been interacting for hundreds of years, especially in particular regions. Can you stop with the... What are you doing out there? Honestly. Ah! Yeah. Anyway. Okay, question. Can you guys hear that, or is it just annoying me? Because as long as it's not affecting the audio and stuff, we'll just keep going. But yeah, so that's the first and kind of only real actual ethnographic info in this chapter. Which is an interesting choice, I'll say that. Alright. Got it. Then we shall carry on. Alright. And then there's an interesting set of things in here, because yeah, just like she's contradicting. That was a sentence. Just like she's contradicting herself when it comes to whether or not plants can verbally communicate versus some other form of communication. We've got a discussion of plants being the philanthropists of the world, and how humans need to be custodians of the plants. And I will say she gets a bit past that later in the chapter, but we've got, for thousands of years, people have been custodians of the plants, you know, especially in these indigenous communities. But, you know, without idolizing them unnecessarily, it's fair to say that many indigenous cultures have maintained strong traditional systems of custodianship over these relationships to safeguard their knowledge and uphold the associated responsibilities of their use. Like, what part of that is not idealizing? Just as a thing, right? compared to a lot of modern Western society, those living closer to the land tend to respect and protect it more as a thing, just by virtue of it being the place of habitation that is needed to continue existing. But one of the big problems in anthropology, and in the last couple of decades especially, people have kind of gotten past it, but for a good long while, there's the, like, weird obsession with the, I can't even remember what the term is anymore, because I've purposely tried to ignore it. Like there we go. Like the noble savage, as it were. And I'm getting some real strong, like, noble savage slash, like, white savior complex adjacent vibes coming through here. So, make of that what you will. Just do that. So, and then we've got this thing in here where I get that she's trying to hammer home that plants are essentially allies for a lot of things. They literally keep the ground together. They're a source of food and shelter and everything else, and deserve respect. You can learn a lot from them, from how they interact with each other, how they interact with nature around them, all of that. How they behave in certain environmental conditions. But, I'm gonna just read it, right? We've got, in response to Western society treating plants like objects, right? She writes, wheat, oats, and barley are reduced to slavery as crops on production lines, and eucalyptus and pine trees tamed and confined in plantation camps, often far away from home, while the unruliness of a natural rainforest is burned or bulldozed to be deplorably eradicated to support our utilitarian exploitation and monopolization of these vegetal beings as resources, and to justify our misappropriation and misuse of the knowledge they have brought to humanity. Now, ma'am, I get what you're trying to do, but how about we don't compare dedicated plant farms to actual slavery? Alright? How about we don't do that? Yeah. So, No. No. And again, this is from 2018. So we've got, where's the, what was this? Okay. So, yeah. Yeah, no, honestly, the, the three main things that have bothered me so far reading this, I mean, four if you're just doing experiments on plants to see how they talk to each other, but because you're assuming that they're intelligent beings, so therefore you force them into a box to see how they communicate, that's a bit sus. Not gonna lie. Again, get what she's trying to do, but I don't know about that one. But, the lack of actual ethnography work, right? The, what's essentially, at least to me, sounding like victim blaming in the last chapter, and then this thing, with, like, plants in a slavery situation that, what? Especially because a lot of times when the plants are being treated in a certain way, the people who depend on the plants in their native range are actually the ones subjected to the slavery and, abuse conditions and all of that. So, as much as I like plants, as much as I appreciate plants, still a humanist, you know. So, people, as much as I appreciate the plant world, you know. Honestly. So yeah, as a critique, we've got, plants are treated as inanimate objects and will differ from other life forms and in form and function within the ecosystem they deserve respect. Yep. Plants are often seen as teachers and healers in indigenous communities. That being said, there are better ways to talk about the narrative than comparing it to actual slavery. Especially when it's kind of, alluded to, you know, the victims of slavery being forcibly removed from their homeland and relocated to another place where they are, stuck in camps and forced to work. Yeah, there's that. Just reading that was like, what? No. Just, can we not today? Can we not? Like, honestly. Oh my God. And just as a thing, right? I'm going through this, and I'm pretty sure what I figured out I was gonna do was record the response and analysis for each chapter as I'm going through it, and then at the end, like, give an overall thing, and then publish that as a video instead of doing each individual chapter. So, there's that. course, then I would get 8 videos out of it, so, you know, we'll see. But, mostly because I would rather just have one thing that's like, right, this, all of the issues with this, click, and done. So, where's that? Okay. And then she goes into, well, she actually mentions scientific colonialism and biopiracy and bioprospecting. Like, a paragraph after that whole slavery thing. So, like, she's all over the place, I realize. But, you know. I don't know. Now, okay. When, again, right? Again, I have to ask, who edited this thing? It's like, North Atlantic Books, based out of Berkeley, right? Is the publisher. I'm not saying any editor's info in here. Alright? This is one sentence. By disregarding both the physical and the spiritual personhood of plants and depreciating the traditional knowledge held by indigenous and local communities about them, the scientific colonizers are busy convincing everyone that whatever product they have to offer is superior, better than the unsubstantiated and fanciful belief system, preserved as traditional knowledge, and certainly wiser than the spiritual pretext that system has concocted to prevent its knowledge claims from being scrutinized according to the Western scientific model. It's this big! That's one sentence! Come on! Oh my god. What? Like, the art is great. It looks put together. The hell happened? Like, honestly. Again, like, I'm not saying that the content of the sentence is bad, but, like, use some punctuation. Come on. Like, honestly. Oh, man. Come on. But yeah, it's, where is it? It's interesting that there's a lot of situations where there's biopiracy happening because there's some, like, indigenous knowledge of a plant that the plant is good for X, Y, or Z illness or something. And then a big pharmacological company decides that they want to patent it. Or they want to patent a combination of whatever. Because that way it's marketable and profitable, regardless of the impact that might have on the indigenous community that the knowledge originated from. Which is a whole thing in and of itself. Alright. And that brings forward the point of who actually, like, owns the knowledge. Because the indigenous communities that things tend to originate from are often seen as having more integrated relationships with plants. In this case, it's the integrated relationship with the plants that is the source of the knowledge. So, you know, there's that. And all of this, right? We're only like 2 pages in. Oh my god. Alright. Also, just, you know, I appreciate a good plant metaphor, you know, and being the content of the book, you know, it's a good place for it, right? So, in speaking about hypotheses and approaches to dealing with plants and plant knowledge and the knowledge shared by plants in whatever capacity, she writes, breaching out of the rooted darkness, breakthroughs are seeds of nonconformity, determined to sprout into the light of free thinking. Which, you know, a bit dramatic, but I'll take it. It's fine. I'd rather have a bit of, like, drama club vibes than whatever was happening on the last page. Alright. And if you're wondering, this is me trying to keep all the post-it pages stuck together so I don't lose them. Alright, now. And she goes on to talk about the plastic boxes that got built for the plant experiment and how it all came to her on a flight, right? Yeah. She was on a flight and had an idea for an experiment. I did not realize, because companion planting is definitely a thing, but I didn't realize that fennel was such an aggressive pain to everyone planted around it. So, yeah, just a thing, in case y'all haven't read the book at the time that you're saying this, if you plant fennel with most things, really, fennel will send out death vibes to try and kill off anything planted around it, which is fun. Basil, on the other hand, sends out nice, helpful vibes to get everything to grow. In this case, it's the chili pepper that is kind of the control to see what happens with things, I guess. So there's that. Apparently, chilies really like having basil planted in the same pot as them as companions, which is cool. We'll have to implement that because we've got a bunch of chili plants now and tomatoes. So, there's that. Fun times. Okay. Okay. Basically, fennel is the Attila of the plant world. Okay, at least one of them. I will be right back. Need to use the facilities for a second. But un momento, please. Get the tunes back for you. Me RB. Okay. So, we'll let everyone out. Pop back in. Okay. Alright. So, completely random aside. Anyone have an idea, at a glance, how to tell if you have a pencil that takes 0.5 or 0.7 lead? Because the geniuses that created this guy, you know, the one that I use for everything, kind of failed to include that information on the actual pencil. Yes. Your microwave does kind of have a, how shall we say, antagonistic, if you will, relationship with every Wi-Fi utilizing bit of electronics in your house, from what I can remember. Like, oh man. It would be inside? I don't know. Let's see. I don't think so. Yeah, no. Oh. I'm pretty sure it's a 5. Because I think there was 5mm with it when I got it, because it was one of those that had a little thing of extra lead. But yeah, no, I'm pretty sure. Because the last time I used 7, I don't think it was this small a stroke. So because I have like 4 packs of 05 over there. And they're all empty somehow. Because I know that I was, being a genius big brain and combined them all so that I would have more in one spot and wouldn't lose them. And now I have all the empty ones and have no idea where the full one got put. Because, again, big brain move. Galaxy brain move. I'm not even surprised. It's just like, really? Okay. My desk's a mess and I can't find light. Anyway. But yeah, good idea on talking to the friendly the friendly assistant people in establishments that would have things of that nature. Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Alright, so, what have we got now? Okay, so, back to the chapter. And there's still that many tabs. Like, seriously. Oh, God. Alright, Alright. So, this is kind of where she's formulating the hypothesis, or lack of a hypothesis, however you want to look at it, for the actual experiment that we'll get into in a second. Although the idea of that walk that back. Although the idea that plants communicate has long been controversial and debated, important insights into our understanding of plant. Okay, let's try the other. Man. You ever have times that your ears just like decide it wants to crack because reasons? Alright, same thing. I mean, for some of the stuff in here, honestly, reading it sideways might make it make more sense. Honestly, just say. Man, it's still doing the cracky thing. Oof. Oh, okay. Let's try that again from the top. Alright. Although the idea that plants communicate has long been controversial and debated, important insights into our understanding of plant ecology have confirmed that plants are capable of processing information about their neighbors, both above and below ground, and of sharing information about the resources available in their surroundings. Now, yes. Especially in the form of fungal networks and root systems and things, like that's kind of a long-standing thing that we're aware of. It's also known that I forget the technical term, but it's tree canopy shyness, where, especially if it's trees of the same type, they emit some kind of chemical that, again, I'm blanking on. But if you look up in the canopy, a lot of times you see a small border between trees that almost looks like a river system if they're the only ones there and there's no other canopy cover or anything, because there's a border between each of them in the canopy, hence canopy shyness. And we've got we know that plants can share information through touch and mechanical contact, so physical contact, induced by gravity, as well as through changes in pressure gradients of various nature. They are also proficient at exchanging information via the transmission and reflection of different wavelengths of light. It's the same as color patterns and things like that. Certain plants have greens and blues and purples and whatever in their visible appearance, because that is what is being reflected back on the viewer. And depending on what manner of organism you are, you might be seeing the plant differently. It's like, if you can pick up on UV or infrared, you might be seeing a different visual than what is perceptible to the human eye. Photoreceptors. Okay. Here we go. Okay, let's see. Ow. They kinda do, but let's see what we've got here. Okay, a photoreceptor cell is a specialized type. Come on. Is a specialized type of neuroepithelial cell found in the retina that's capable of visual phototransduction. The great biological importance of photoreceptors is that they convert light into signals. They can stimulate biological processes. To be more specific, the photoreceptor proteins in the cell absorb photons, triggering a change in the cell's membrane potential. Or also a structure in a living organism, especially a sensory cell or sense organ that responds to light falling on it. Okay, so we've got rods and cones. Okay. Here we go. Photoreceptors in plants utilize chromophore to detect photons in incoming light. The red and far red light receptor phytochromes are covalently attached to a phytochromoblin phytochromoblin tetrapyrrole ring, which can isomerize in response to red and far red light to induce changes in the protein structure. So, yeah. Plants have two different types of photoreceptors to perceive different waves of light. Blue light receptors, those that absorb blue light waves, and phytochromes, those that absorb red light waves. Blue light signals a variety of effects in plants. Yeah. So, yeah, I'm blanking right now, but one activates roots and one activates flowers, and then they both help it grow. So if you're wanting it's gonna bug me unless I look it up. Okay, here we go. Okay, here we go. Plants use the blue spectrum to stimulate early growth. Blue light also affects flower and fruit preparation and production, but blue light alone produces short plants of a dark color. Red light induces higher but softer growth and stimulates fuller leaf growth. Red light is ideal to maintain healthy, mature plants. So you start it with blue, and then switch it to red, or have both, and then transition to red later, basically. So if you're using like hydroponics and stuff, that's the thing. Yeah. And again, it's like, it's not a language like what humans tend to have as a visual or as a spoken word thing, but it is a language. It's not eyes like you would see in a mammal or an insect or something, but it is eyes after a fashion. So, yeah. Very cool stuff. Okay. I'll have to remember to put that in the YouTube edition of this. Otherwise, there will probably be many confused people. Because, you know, obviously. Yeah. And with the plant communication and stuff, for example, plants are able to warn each other of approaching insect attacks using an extensive vocabulary. And in this instance, it's in quotes, so it's a metaphorical vocabulary. But that's the first time that she's put it in quotes in the entire, 2 chapters that we've been working with. So, again, lack of consistency. You know? If you're gonna make a point, if you're going to write in text with a point as a core aspect of it, at least have a consistent point, you know. It shouldn't be that much of an ask, you know? But a vocabulary of chemical molecules such as herbivore-induced volatile organic compounds, which it's not explained what a herbivore-induced volatile organic compound would be, but there's a lot of plants that when they are predated upon when an herbivore, an insect, animal, whatever. I know, right? So picky. But when an animal of some kind goes to eat the plant, they emit some kind of chemical warning or something to alert their own defenders, to alert other plants in the area. A lot of times it's some kind of distress signal into the soil, or there's, I don't know, more nectar produced by the flowers if it's that time of year, or there's sap that flows more because they're trying to flush out something. It just depends on what the thing is. Nice. Nice. Very nice. Yes. Herbador, the love child of Sprout and Dumbledore. Wow. Okay. Alright. Alright. Fair. Fair. God. Alright. Moving on. Okay. And if you're at all curious as to what I'm using for bookmarks, it's the adventure reading ones that were made back in October, in the middle of the I was streaming almost every day and did art, and I can't remember what it's called. Streaming! There we go. Wow. That... wow. Okay. Got it. Okay. So we've got that page, that's done. Okay. Yeah. Okay, now, we have the onset of the botanical isolation experiment. Which, again, if you're trying to, and I realize a lot of scientific advancement comes from either a hypothesis, and then you go from there, or I have observed this thing, I don't know why it's happening, let's figure out why it's happening. And for a lot of established academia, and by that I generally mean old white dudes who happen to be academics, that, like, if you're challenging the status quo, i.e., going with the latter of, I have found a thing, why does it do what it does? Which I would assume is kind of how science started in the first place, because that tends to be how people get interested in science. So I don't see why that's an issue. But she brings up a number of times that it's revolutionary and against the grain to be approaching things in that manner. Which, fair enough. But if your experiment, let's say, is to prove that plants communicate in nonverbal ways, in ways that aren't inherently perceivable in any as yet known manner, because they're intelligent beings deserving of respect and acknowledgement and everything else. They're putting it, at least she's putting it forward as needing to prove that plants are intelligent beings with heretofore unknown modes of communication, which, fine. That's fine. Do your experiment. And because they're intelligent beings with heretofore unknown modes of communication, we should isolate them and poke them with a stick, essentially, and see what they do in isolation. Which, if your premise is that the plant, animal, whatever beings that you're working with are intelligent, cognitively aware teachers, per se, that just sounds a bit, shall we say, counterproductive? I don't know. But, again, I get what she's doing in here. Because if you have a situation where the only possible outcome is that communication is occurring in a heretofore unknown modality, that changes the entire perception of how you interact with whatever it is that you're working with. Okay. That slight little rant is over. People keep saying these are unprecedented times with, like, Spanish flu. Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Like, guys. Like, what part of previous pandemics and epidemics that taught people that, basic hygiene was kind of important, the number of people, right? The number of people that I have seen in the last couple of months counting out change or flipping through a book in a public area, doing the lick the finger and go to the next page, or like lick the finger and flip through the bills before handing something back thing. Like, what are you doing? Ma'am, sir, what are you doing? Seriously. Ugh, God. Yeah, it's... If you're trying to say that you had this incredible, life-altering experience where the universe has communicated to you in context of the plants and animals around you, which, again, if you're in Australia, I still don't see how you're in Australia and get a random dream visitation from plants in the Amazon, so therefore I want that story. Like, I'm hoping that it's somewhere in here, and I just haven't read it yet, but, like, I have some questions, right? You know? Yeah. Now, yeah. And it's like, if you're waiting for the bus, like on the COVID situation, right? If you're waiting for the bus with a bunch of other people and you're reading a book, I don't care how much the pages have decided to stick together because it's a new book or whatever. Leave your dang mask on and don't be licking your fingers to turn the page, alright? Just as a thing. Please. Please, for the sanity of us all. Just no. Just no. Right? Can we not do that, maybe? Yes? Seriously. Oh my god. Yeah, so here we go. I will say with the experiment that she's doing, it is nice to see science acknowledging in a scientific way that traditional companion planting methods are directly relatable and not just like able to be passed off as there's something in the soil or whatever. But it was visibly impactful that that chili plants benefited from growing around other chili plants that are older, or benefited from growing around basil, and did not do well around fennel. So there's that. That is of interest. And we've got, in companion planting, plants are grown in conjunction with each other. It's a long-standing practice that, quote, echoes the scientific notion that the neighboring species affect one another through negative, competitive, as well as positive, facilitative interactions. So, positive or negative impacts on whatever plants are going around it. I will also say, right, I realize that this is not the most scientific of documents. And there's likely a scientific article that thanks for the clip, Honeycomb. Needed that. This is not the most scientific of documents, as we have well established. However, right, if you're doing an experiment where you're analyzing particular chemicals and behaviors of samples and you put the data in the document that you're working with here, right? Because fennel is known to exude aggressive chemicals that inhibit growth and even kill other plants around him, I expected his presence in the box to retard or block the germination and growth rates of the young chili when open contact was possible. And that was proven correctly. What aggressive chemicals? Like, what? You're writing ethnographic data about plants. You're not writing ethnographic data about the people that work with the plants. What? Like, seriously, she's treating the plants in the experiment more like people stuck in an ant farm than she's treating the people that she's working with in the Amazon. Which is... it's a choice. It's a choice. Basil, on the other hand, is well known as the ideal companion to chili plants by virtue of his ability to keep the soil moist and act as organic living mulch, as well as being an effective natural insecticide and inhibiting the germination and root growth of common competitive weeds. Which, I will say, that is cool, but also why? That, like, I appreciate that is viable information, that is relevant data, but why? You're writing a scientific, or at least pseudoscientific, discussion of plant idiosyncrasies and botanical interactions with other plants. Why are they behaving that way? That's... Why? I realized that I could just go look it up myself. Like, I get it. But if you're writing a book that's not a fiction work, like, this is not a fiction story that happens to feature plants, right? If it's something like that, then I can suspend disbelief enough to just, like, oh, because magic, or whatever. But, like, it's billing itself as a groundbreaking scientific discoveries and personal encounters with plants book, right? We've got the personal encounters, like, fine. Where's the groundbreaking science, though? Like, you know? The experiment itself, I see where she's coming from, but it's not fully laid out, right? Yeah, it's aimed at a general audience. So, at least, like, there's... Oh, let's see. Oh, wow, okay. So, right, got it. Oh, okay. Didn't even see this. Side note, the Illustrator, that's cool. The Illustrator, Patricia Gazashi? Apologies again, pronouncing names is not my strong suit. Is a Mexican artist based in Australia. After completing her studies in international relations in Italy, and spending some years working in non-governmental organizations. She had a life-changing experience in Peru while working with indigenous communities, after which she spent the next 7 years traveling the world. Currently, she lives in Sydney, where she shares her love by teaching yoga and creating art, along with running a business selling yoga accessories. Right, okay. So that's the artist. Yeah. So, alright. I don't know about that, but okay. So, right. We've got, how many? 134 to 150. Oh. Brain's not working. One sec. Come on. We've got 16 pages of footnotes, right? And 3 pages of an index. And she couldn't be bothered to even just put in, like, see rest of data or something. Like, guys. What? Which I realize it might be in the, out of sight but not out of mind alternative means of communication of plants. That's noted with the, experiment schematic on the other page. But seriously, just, guys. Okay, one sec. Gotta resituate, because the knee is having a situation. Anyway, there's that. And we still have 5 pages left. Oh my god. Alright. Seriously. No excuses, just salt. It's fine. It's fine. Alright. So this part is interesting with the experiment bit. So, what was unanticipated was the fact that the young chili accelerated their germination rates when the fennel was present, but its signals were partially or totally blocked. It demonstrated that the young plants were able to recognize the potential for the interfering presence of their bad neighbor and swiftly respond to their situation by adjusting their growth. Which is an interesting concept, you know. That's about all it gets, honestly, in here. As expected, germination rates improved with other chili plants around, and unsurprisingly, were even better in the benevolent presence of basil. This finding clearly validated the claims of many gardeners who recognized the beneficial effect of basil on the growth of chili plants. And then she goes on to say, the supportive interaction observed between these two species was mediated later when she was trying to completely cut off the signals between the plants. Supportive interaction observed between these two species was mediated by a signaling modality other than those studied thus far, light, chemicals, and touch. Because, essentially, in sticking the plants in isolation, we've got, I don't know how well y'all can see it, but we've got this box, and I'm trying to do this backwards, so yeah, that's fun. We've got, there we go, we've got a box and the plants in the interior, and it's vacuum sealed when it's at its most, like, secure, and the central plant is in this, like, opaque tube thing, so any chemical, visual, whatever signals that might usually be applicable are voided, which is how they came up with, excuse me, which is how they came up with their other hypotheses of how plants were communicating, because they couldn't figure it out otherwise. Yeah. So, yeah, and then the question, once again, was how do they know who was growing next to them when such a neighbor was supposed to be undetectable? Because they were in isolated situations. The light, I'm guessing the light was like, if it was an opaque tube that had a clear top on it, but that's never specified, it's just an opaque tube. But if everything is in a vacuum, if everything is in an extended term vacuum, then, yeah, regardless of how much light you have in there, there's not gonna be enough airborne respiration happening for anything to be alive for an extended period of time. So, like, how? And again, it's not explained. Like, seriously. I get people identifying with some of what is being said in here, but how? How is it really? There's all these people calling it a revolutionary work, and moving on. Alright, so, and then we've got this that is the chart showing how the plants grow in conjunction with an adult plant of some capacity, and then the plants growing without an adult plant of some capacity. And they do tend to grow better, I suppose, with an adult plant around than they would otherwise, so there's probably some amount of chemical or phytological involvement on that. Yeah, no problem. Like, I don't... Yeah, there wasn't anything... Yeah. There wasn't even any ethnographic charts happening in the first one, so there we go. But yeah, no, I'll totally keep doing that if that's a thing that is beneficial, because I know visual aids and all of that help a lot. So, yeah, especially if you're listening to it instead of reading it. Yeah. So, we've got... wait. One sec, just making sure that I have made sense of my notes properly. Okay. Nice, very cool. Congratulations. Let's, 1 second. Yay for SOT completion. Almost. Yay for the majority of SOT completion. There we go. Huh. Interesting. Yeah, because admittedly, I had to read the caption like 4 times to figure out what they were saying, because it's the only sciencey text speak part of this whole thing. It's like it's basically this is a novel and this is a scientific document. And there's no merging of the two. It's just all one thing. Which, okay, that was a choice. But okay. Okay. So. And then there's just a restating of the peer review process, not thinking that the experiment was overly scientific, essentially. Because it's the usual scientific process doesn't allow for the unexpected, which isn't that kind of the point of science, to, you know, poke the unexpected until it does things, you know? Maybe that's just me. Quote, to allow for the unexpected to happen with no preconception about what one is even looking for seemed unorthodox, and it was this unorthodoxy that was perceived as an infringement of the conventional touchstone for scientific legitimacy. It's not that they don't have a thing that they're looking for, it's that they're trying to figure out what's there, you know? That seems like 2 different things, alright? Like, We have no idea what we're looking for. No, you do. You know what you're looking for. You just don't know what it looks like yet. You know? Like, you have data showing that plants are talking to each other somehow in a way that you don't currently understand, so you're trying to figure out that. You know? It doesn't seem that mind-boggling. You know? Thank you much, Anico. Somehow I forgot that we had the quote function, because, like, yeah. Then farther down, there's a method. There's a mention of the three sisters that would be maize or corn. What's the other two? 9. This one actually has a footnote, so we're gonna go analyze that. Corn, beans, and squash. There we go. I couldn't remember who the third one was. The three sisters system is the famous traditional Native American method of growing these plants together as companions as well as eating them together, as they complement each other nutritionally, and celebrating them together as precious life-giving gifts from the Great Spirit, according to the Iroquois legend. That's another one. Like, it's... That's the language that a lot of people know. That particular comes from the Iroquois. That is... Oh, jeez. If I'm remembering correctly, and if I'm not, someone, correct me. But I believe the Iroquois are northeast? Can't remember. Today, corn is one of the most genetically modified plant species. It's kind of ironic, then, that the same plant that is so heavily subjected to biotechnology manipulations, including RNA silencing, was also the first plant to speak up. And in this context, we'll get into it. But it's that there was corn being grown in a lab in England, and for some reason they had audio capture tech, like high power audio capture tech, trained on the germinating seeds, and captured a kind of cheeping sort of sound, like chirp sort of frequency thing. Then we've got, because we are designed to believe our own perceptions, our human experience of their silence is so obvious and undeniable that we forget to question whether plants truly are as voiceless as we perceive them. And then, admittedly, without offering some proof of plant voice, assuming we agreed on the definition of voice, we may rightly deem the question itself to be nonsense. Yeah. Okay, now, being that she's gone back and forth... right, okay. That's just a source, so... thought we'd go into it more, but it's, no. Reference to the voice and voicelessness in rhetorical studies. Right. Okay. Then we've got just a note that I made. Just because human perception determines something to be true doesn't mean that it is. Applies to the silence of the botanical world, among other things. Whether it's perceived reality that is a bit skewed, or any number of other situations. So far in the experiment and the limited, sadly limited, explanation of the experiment, we know that the plants were communicating in some fashion, but it's currently unknown how. And they're figuring that the plants are communicating via sound, mostly because that's the only method that is likely when visual, physical, and chemical cues are removed, which is what was happening in the experiment. So, plants emitting sound frequencies at a decibel rate that other plants can pick up on would be a potential communication strategy, shall we say. And we've got and again, yeah, exactly, which is weird. I'll just say that, because we're a page and a half from the end of the chapter, and now she's talking about sound. You know? And again, we've got a passage here that's, what is it? Voice is an intersubjective affair. Voice exists in the place of relation, the space between the self and the other, and it is what we bring to our encounters with plants that defines the quality of our communicative rendezvous. Those we allow to speak or those we silence. And that is... Okay, yeah, it's over on the other side. Couldn't remember where it was for a second. Yeah. thing that I was thinking, really, when she was talking about the real-time plant response to sound, was the, like, idea for playing music to or talking to plants, because that's been around for a while. And then down here, we've got, going back to the previous passage, Horn had come to ask that we recognize our attempts at silencing plants because humans have something of a track record for silencing those whose voice they do not want to hear. We do this by unconsciously ignoring them or deliberately stripping them away. And this is an injurious act because it violates the very thing that makes dialogue possible, the recognition of the other as an equal. And in... Where is it? In the footnote, right? In the footnote it says that that applies to members of human communities as well as non-humans. Why couldn't that have been part of the sentence? Right? Just as a thing. That, because the context here is that humans silence plants by not listening to plants, therefore humans need to listen to plants. And also other humans, because. But if you frame it as humans are kind of jerks and need to be more aware of their surroundings and their effect on others, regardless of whether or not they're human or plant or whatever. But, emphasis on certain communities who are routinely overlooked. Like, wouldn't that kind of add a whole other realm to this thing, Yeah, I don't know. And then there's, where was it? 15. And then there's a sentence that's, plants emit sounds they hear and modify their behavior on the basis of them. Which, again, the music talking to plants thing. I have not seen the Mythbusters episode regarding that, but I would like to, because that would be cool. And that might be a thing to do a reaction thing to, actually, now that I'm thinking about it. So, there's that. But yeah, once again, it's like, I get, at least I'm pretty sure I get what she's trying to do, right, with what she's saying and the experiments and all the rest of it. And it's, again, it's like she's treating plants like they're more human than the humans that she's working with. you know? Yeah, exactly. She's trying so hard to be an ally, and just, it's coming off so awkward, and so, like, yeah. Like, sweetie, I see what you're trying to do, which, I hope, I really hope, it's probably not gonna happen, because if you're writing everything at once, then it's like your perceptions of things back here are mirrored up here at the front of the book, generally, unless you have a major reevaluation halfway through and just decide not to rewrite anything. But, like, I really hope that this part of it is more put together than this part was. I really do. Seriously. Right. Okay, let's see. And then she just goes on about how custodianship is, like, Custodianship inadvertently patronizes the plants by treating them with a kindness that gives away our feeling of superiority, and then comes down here. Okay, alright. This attitude is most obviously observed, though rarely understood for what it truly accomplishes, when we overwrite plants with the sounds that are familiar to us by ventriloquizing them through the approximation of human speech, or the transposition of musical scales and various instruments onto them. Like, ma'am, what have you been doing for the last 2 chapters? And then there's a reference to they don't need custodianship, but a commitment to a non-hierarchical respect and space of communion in which we come to understand the world and take the pathway toward understanding each other. Which, it's not limited to plants. It's the people that work with the plants and stuff, and like, again, I get what she's trying to do and stuff. I get it. But the execution, at least currently, for this part of the book, is just like, So, there's that. That's the end of the chapter. That's the end of what we're doing today, essentially. Next week, it's going to be The Bear's Cauldron. That's the 3rd chapter in... Oh, come on. Ow. The 3rd chapter in... Ow. In the book. Is that all of it? Yeah. Alright. Okay. 1 second. Seriously. Let me... Alright, 1 sec. There we go. Okay. in there. Got that situated. Okay, now. It's together. Alright, well, I'm looking up the word of the day. Aha, there you are. Well, I'm looking up a U word in Cockney. Anyone have questions, suggestions, general observations, whatever, from what we just went through? Okay, so, there's three. There's three here. And they're short, so I'll just give them all. Alright? That we haven't done the Cockney for a while, so there you go. Uncle Bert is a shirt. As in, why haven't you washed me, Uncle? Uncle Fred is bread. And Uncle Ned is bed. So, depending on the context, and it's either, and which uncle is being referred to, it's either shirt, bread, or bed. So, there's that. Right. Now that, yeah. So, this thing. Like, I'm glad that I'm reading it, right? It's been sitting there for the better part of a year. Just staring at me. Like, anyway, so, we're doing chapter 3 next week. There's gonna be some other stuff popping up on the YouTube and the blog, and the podcast too, if I can get to it, in the intervening couple of days. If you don't see me there, I'm gonna be around on Twitch on Thursday at about 4-ish. Yeah, exactly. And honestly, doing the Botany Book Club thing is forcing me to read books that have just kind of been chilling for a while, that haven't gotten read, because fanfiction's a thing that exists and is rather engrossing, shall we say? But, yeah, so I've got a few that are definitely on the list of things that will be read and analyzed and posted in the coming weeks. Once we're done with this, I'm gonna be filming last week's and this week's, because I haven't filmed the one for last week yet. But when we're done with the whole set, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. There's 8, so we're on 3 next week. So, my nose. So in another month and a half, we're gonna be done with this one, and then I'll compile all the individual videos and do like an overall synopsis conclusion thing and post that to YouTube. So if you've missed any of them, if you want to revisit any of them, it's not going to be the full like 3-hour dialogue like we do here, because it last time was 3 hours, this time's about 3 hours. But it'd be like maybe 10 minutes or shorter for each chapter. We'll see what happens. I don't know. We'll see what happens with editing. What was more engrossing than plant books? That would be the Dustiel fanfiction. So, yeah. Just letting you know. Oh, wow. It went from 10 to 2 viewers real quick. So, anyway. There is that. And, yeah. If you have any suggestions for yeah, exactly. I'm gonna go through and write up a script, or at least a bullet point script, for each of the things, and then just go from there. Actually, if I just wait until the end of it, like, yeah, okay, that's what I'll do. I'll write up a bullet point script as we go, and then just film the whole thing at the end, and if there's a point that repeats, just say, like, and again, with this. That'd be the whole compendium of Dean and Cass from Supernatural. Because, anyway, if anyone has suggestions on stuff to read, either for future Botany Book Club books, or for something that you would like to see me read and analyze, read and respond to on the YouTubes, let me know. And because I've kind of gotten sucked into BookTube and the book things in there, I'm thinking to put some stuff on the Adventurin channel too with that. If it's not plant related, but it is a book that has been read, then there's that. A lot of what I have from like high school and stuff would probably fit into that category. And once I have a better feel of how stuff's working, I want to do like a, I don't know, revisiting fiction from a decade ago, or actually no, a decade ago I was in college. Well, revisiting fiction from like 15 years ago or whatever, and reanalyze it from the perspective of an adult compared to how I remembered it, like, at the time of reading it. So, there's a whole bookcase and a whole couple of boxes in storage that are like that. So, you know. Also with the entire Potter series that's sitting in a case right there. Right there. Oh, yeah. One thing. I only have the first book, but would going through the Sorcerer's Stone and seeing what they call the plants be of interest? Because I think it's just the first one, but I have the American release, I'm pretty sure I have the UK release, and I have the Latin. So, yeah, exactly. The author, I don't know, like, didn't Harry just decide to write his autobiography? Like, yeah, seriously, like, it's one of those situations, yeah, yeah, exactly, Dustiel. It's one of those situations that I want to delve into the botanical relationships in the storyline. And that's been a thing that's kind of been on a back burner for a while. And if you look back in the blog, there's a post from, I don't even remember when, talking about how the Whomping Willow is kind of a metaphor for the world tree of that universe, because everything is in such upheaval and all of that, and what the willow tends to represent with, like, sorrow and whatever other symbolism is attached to it, I can't remember right now. But especially with how last year went with that particular author, to go into it also having the discussion, or at least mentioning the inaccuracies, the problematic nature, however you want to phrase it, of said author. that, and like I can rather easily divorce the author from the work in that instance, mostly because I came into it from the fandom, not from the source material itself. So I came into it as a fan of the alternative storylines that had all the representation and everything else, and then read the original. It's like, wait a second, what is this? Wait, you mean that didn't happen? What? So, yeah, that's a thing that I'm thinking about doing, so, yeah. But, yeah. And that's another one that, wouldn't it be better to have it be just, like I was thinking for Supernatural and whatever, would it be better to do something that's just like an overview of the entire series, or to break it down into the books themselves? I don't know. So, things to be thinking about. Alright. So, again, this thing, if you would like to read along, let me see. I have a new, app. Just completely forgot the word for all of the things on my phone. But I have a new app for what's essentially digital library. And you there we go. No, okay. Apparently not. Oh, okay. Yeah, got it. Yeah, no, will do. Will do. So, I was trying to see if it was on there. And the the Digital Southern California library acknowledges that it exists, but doesn't have the thing. So, there's that. Yeah, so, anyway. I think that's where we're gonna end it for today. And I'll get the affiliate link on the Discord for anyone who wants to participate in the reading portion of this bunch of shenanigans. Yeah. Also, I'm not familiar with Bard, but that sounds like a cool spot for audiobooks, so we can put a link for that in there too, if you'd like. Anyway,